Hey everybody, welcome back to Manga Mondays, the only manga review show that is finally, at long last, after like half a year, more than something like half a year of Manga Mondays, I'm gonna start talking about manga I already owned. So far this show has always been about either manga I just purchased or ones I literally went out and bought during the course of the show. They were all new, usually stuff that had just been released. Occasionally I would bring in something that was older, but like I'd never heard of it, like the Drops of God recently. But most of it's been newer stuff that's gone on sale in the time since I started the show. But there hasn't been a lot of new releases that I've been interested in lately, resulting in me reading stuff like the Slime manga. And so while I'm waiting for some more new releases, or to take a trip to a store other than Barnes & Noble, I figured I'd finally dive into my fucking collection and start reading shit that I've had sitting there the entire time. Which it feels slightly weird for me because I kind of see Manga Mondays as a bit of a buyer's guide. It seems like people somewhat use it that way. I think most people use it more as a what should I go watch online guide or read online, but like some people do actually buy manga based on this show. So I kind of like to keep it in the realm of stuff that's easily available, and also which doesn't already have 8 volumes out, and I'm just talking about volume 1 because it's the only one I own. But, you know, whatever. We're going to get into it with Biomega. This is a manga from Tsutomu Nihei, who I have been a fan of for a very long time, and he's gotten much more popular in the last few years. He was originally known for the manga series Blame, which I believe is 10 volumes. It's about a guy wandering silently through a cyberpunk world where he fucking shoots lots of monsters. And it's really violent and mostly action with very little dialogue. You can charge through volumes of Blame really fast. And it had kind of a cult following. But the next thing of his to get released here, Biomega, I never really heard anybody talk about this manga. And it feels like it kind of got leapt over because his next thing, Knights of Sidonia, got popular because it had an anime adaptation. And then Blame got adapted into a movie by, Polygon recently. I believe Netflix may have even sponsored that movie. So, you know, there's been more attention to some of his other properties, and Biomega, it's kind of a shame this got skipped over because in a lot of ways it's like the coolest Tsutomu Nihei manga. Like, Blame has I think a lot of what makes people love Blame is the feeling of like isolation and this weird mysterious world that the series takes place in. But like the bulk of the series is a bunch of crazy action scenes, big explosive altercations between a guy and a bunch of monsters. And Biomega does the action scenes much better, I think, than Blame. This is the manga equivalent of the movie Dredd 3D. If you like the movie Dredd 3D, this is the manga version. Not story-wise, but content-wise, in terms of what you're seeing. I would also compare it to Mad Max Fury Road. It's a manga that is light on dialogue, heavy on action, heavy on crazy, brick-shitting, intense action that is just constantly happening. Every chapter, and the chapter's only 20 pages, with almost no dialogue. So you can read a chapter in about 12 seconds, and it's just something crazy and awesome happening every page. Like, look, we're like right at the start, this dude's driving a motorcycle, and there's these fucking zombies, and there's a girl, and it's like, oh shit, and he fucking hits the girl and fucking breaks her into pieces, and then the fucking zombies are attacking, and he blows up all their heads with his fucking crazy exploding gun bullets, and like, you see how little dialogue there is here? This is just people killing each other, like, page after page. And it gets progressively more insane as it goes along, until we get to the point by the end of Volume 1, where a guy is using a high-powered sniper rifle to shoot, like, weapons of mass destruction out of the sky by the end of Volume 1. You know, like, that's some shit you'd see at the end of a movie, and it's happening at the end of Act 1 of this thing. One of the major characters is a talking bear. No explanation given as to why there is a talking bear, but our main characters are a dude, here's the talking bear with a gun. The main characters are a dude who comes into town, into this like locked down city on a motorcycle. The motorcycle has an AI inside of it that he talks to, and they're here. It's a city full of like weird zombies, and they have to get this girl who's got like the virus, but she can't. But she has normal characteristics and she can't die. And they need to get her out of this city. And everything else can go. Everything else can be destroyed. Everyone else can be killed and will. But there's this talking bear who's protecting the girl. I don't know why. No one knows why. It doesn't matter. There's a talking bear. That's a thing in this world. And then they're basically competing with this rival organization who has all these fucking badass like robot monster dudes working for them. You can see them exchanging gunfire. Everyone looks cool as shit. Like, hold on, I want to find a good picture. Here we go. Here's the guy. Yeah, that's the enemy guys. And they're fucking... They look like they are from Bloodborne. Like, in fact, everybody in this looks like... This looks like a cyberpunk Bloodborne. Almost. But yeah, it's just crazy. Oh, shit. Look at this. Hold on. Look at this fucking image. Hell yeah. I'm kind of spoiling this, but, like, it's like that on every page. You know, like, it's just constantly, like, explosions, or a cool cinematic shot, or someone getting, like, fucking gruesomely gored, and then you just keep moving. Most of the manga that I review on this show takes me about, like, 3 days to a week to read, depending on the size of the book. Maybe more than a week if it's really big, because I read almost exclusively on the toilet. This was in my bathroom for like 24 hours. Like, I read this in the span of 2 or 3 poops, and it was done. Which is incidentally why I never bought another volume of this. So at the time this came out, this was on the Viz Signature line, which was their basically bigger, fancier, nicer printing, more adult stories book line, where each book was the whopping price of $12.99. Now, at the time, the average price of manga was $10, and I was a teenager, and I was like, no, I'm not paying $13 per volume, especially when I read this in 15 minutes, and, like, while everything that happens in it is badass, it doesn't have much gravity to it. And I think that's the problem with Biomega, and really with all of Tsutomu Nihei's work, is that it's kind of too fast for manga. Like, I think that each image in itself is really cool, but you're not going to linger on it for that long, because you get it, you look at it, you get the image, you go, oh, cool, and then you go to the next image, and you go, oh, cool, but there's no time for it to sink in. And I feel like the way that his stories are told, the imagery that they have, is better suited to film. Like, if each of these images moved for a second and had, you know, music or sound behind it, it would just have that much more impact. You've got these crazy action scenes, but you're, like, reading a sound effect that says, ba-boom, you know, as opposed to actually hearing an explosion when this stuff happens. So, even though it looks like the most badass action scene of all time, it doesn't have the gratification you would get from actually watching Dredd 3D or, you know, Mad Max Fury Road. I think Tsutomu Nihei is as good at crafting images as the directors of those films, as anyone who worked on those. Like, look at this insanity there of them, him helping this bear onto his motorcycle while they're flying by the moonlight, and then they're like, this is the next page, they're driving past the building that they've just burned on fire. Like, imagine how cool this would be animated. But, like, I don't want them to make an anime out of it, because I know it's going to be CG, because there's no way they can afford to make a 2D animated series or feature out of this. Like, it's way too active. It would have to be animated constantly. Every image is super detailed. I wish it was a live action film. Look at how cool this fucking monster is. There's no explanation for this. This creature shows up for like 1 page just to like look cool. Like, he's trying to, you know, get to this girl, and then he gets stopped by this weird fucking creature, and it just looks at him menacingly and then goes away. Like, every image is awesome, but like, it doesn't seep in. It doesn't have time, you know? And to me, the idea of like buying you know, spending upwards of $100 on like basically one movie. Like, again, this is like 15 minutes of a film. If there was 10 volumes of it, you'd get a full feature, but you know, it's not even as cool as it would be as a movie, and you just dropped $100 on one movie. You know, like that's kind of the feel I get from it. So it's like, it's hard for me to justify it just because it's so weightless. It's a bunch of really cool images that do stick with me. Some of the images in there I remember from, you know, reading this in 15 minutes once 6 years ago, but I don't know. It doesn't have the weight, and I think that's why perhaps Blame is more celebrated, because Blame gets into your bones a little bit more with the setting and with the ideas of the narrative, even though most of it is exactly the same, just a bunch of crazy fights happening. This one feels more like action movie du jour in the plot. Like, the plot is not going to keep your attention. It is actually fairly interesting, because it jumps into just apocalyptic shit, like, right off the bat. Like, this volume starts off like, the Earth's a little fucked, and by the end of the volume, the Earth is very fucked. And I guess if there's one thing that made me want to keep reading this, like, that I didn't remember from my first read, but I picked up on more this time, is just, like, how fucked things really are. Like, I kind of want to see what happens to the Earth in the next volume. If this conflict expands beyond the city that we're driving around in this volume and becomes an entire global conflict, which I can easily see. I could even see it being a conflict across space, because parts of this involve the planet Mars. So that might make it interesting. I am curious enough that I might buy another volume, because now that A, I'm an adult with disposable income, and B, $13 is the totally normal price of manga now. In fact, normally it's $14. If I can find these for the listed price, I might pick up another one. And, you know, I'll let you know how it goes if I ever finally do a follow-up video where I start reading volume 2s. You might notice I've got, like, you know, oh, hey, Fire Force. I remember him covering the first 2 volumes of that, and now he's got 4. I wonder what he thinks of volumes 3 and 4. I haven't read them. I have not kept up with any of the second volumes I've bought, but maybe one day I will. Anyway, if you like high-flying action, you know, whether you buy this or not, you should absolutely give this a read if you want, like, again, Dredd 3D in manga form. That's all for this one. Catch you next week.